Tonight I'm doing an imaging I haven't done in a while. Not I'm doing a new object that I haven't done before, but what I'm doing that I haven't done in a while is for several months I've just been imaging in EQ mode. And today I just wasn't in the mood to get out the tripod and get it all set up. And so I set it outside and I'm just going to do it in alt azimuth mode. And so I just used the tripod that came with the Seestar and plopped it out there. And I wanted to try a new object. And the new object I'm going to do is the crowbar galaxy. And so I wanted to show you how different it looks. When I first got my Seestar, we didn't have EQ mode. And so I was thrilled with any image I got. We could do post processing. You know, I was pretty happy with what I got. But then EQ mode came out and I just started using it all the time because I had my tripod set up and, I could access a lot more area in the sky and the the field rotation was better. And then they came out with the longer exposures. And so it was kind of a no brainer. I just left it in EQ mode and that's all I've done. Well, today I got lazy and I didn't want to set it all up, but I wanted to go out and just image something. So I just put it in alt azimuth mode. And I want to show you the what I found when I'm imaging this. Now, I think we just get used to what we're seeing. And so in the top right hand corner, you can see that it's in alt azimuth mode. And then I did the go to and I'm going to that crowbar galaxy and it found it. Everything was great. But what I want to show you is the results. And it's not very far in. When I click on this, we'll see how far, but I'll go ahead and click on it now. We've got 29 minutes on it. And you see there's the crowbar galaxy right there. And we haven't done any denoising or anything, but I'm going to I'm going to turn on full screen mode. Wow, look at those corners. I just forgotten, when you could see the field rotation is so much greater in this object than I'm used to over the last few months. And we just get used to seeing what we see. I'm having quite a few stacking fails. I am doing this on 20-second exposures. That's probably why I'm getting quite a few failures in the stacking. But man, you can see that field rotation in those corners. Like, look at that. And I'm just not used to that. It's been several months since I've seen that. And so I just thought that was an interesting thing to take a step backwards and see how far we've come. They keep updating the app and they add these enhancements, and it's great to have options. And, in the beginning, that's all I used, I would just enlarge things and crop it out like that so that you couldn't see the field rotation, and I could still do that. But man, I'm just not used to seeing them. I can still go in and do the editing to make things dark. And, you could edit it out and make it look fairly decent, but I'd still have to crop it to get those field rotations out of the corner. But man, those are big. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop its imaging and then I'm going to put it on. I'm going to get up the energy and go out there and put it on the tripod and do it in EQ mode so we can compare the difference. I think that's what I'll do next. Okay, so I set it all up and got it out on EQ mode. You can see in the top right hand corner that it's showing the EQ mode icon. And we've been imaging for a little bit so that we can compare. So when I click and see what it's imaging, this is what we get. And so I'm going to go and turn off that full screen mode. And you see that those edges are looking a lot better than they were. So it just goes to show that we kind of get spoiled a little bit. It's not a huge problem. I would crop this object anyway. Of course, this isn't denoised, so that's kind of blurry, but you don't see as much of the field rotation on the EQ mode. So this is a good test run to show how it differs. And I thought it was kind of an interesting experiment. This one only has 26 minutes, 26 and a half about, where the other one had 29. You know, we weren't doing, I didn't set out tonight to do an experiment, but I thought it was kind of interesting. And so I did this spontaneous video about this. So in the alt azimuth mode, we saw that field rotation in all the corners. It was pretty apparent. It was obvious. I hope it comes across in the video like it does on my phone, but man, it was pretty obvious. In the EQ mode, it's doing a whole lot better. Then we can come in here and let's just for fun do the denoising on it to see what we can see of this crowbar galaxy. I haven't done this one before. I can definitely see why it's named what it is named. There we go. I mean, that's just using the denoise in the app, but it does pretty good. And then I can click that compare so you can see the difference of what the denoising does. Man, it makes a big difference, doesn't it? And you don't see that field rotation. Yeah, this is an interesting, a fun object to image. But man, I really set out tonight just to do something new, an object that I hadn't done before, and it turned into an experiment between alt azimuth mode and EQ mode, and testing or observing that field rotation, and it definitely makes quite a big difference. Here I have some still photos of both of those. The one on the left is the alt azimuth mode. I did do some brightening in the Adobe software I use to do the videos so that it would be a little bit more obvious. I mean, when I see it on my phone, it's obvious just to look at, but I did brighten it a little, and I brightened both images the same amount so that you could see that field rotation a little bit more obvious, hopefully, so it comes across better in the video. But the one on the left is the alt azimuth mode, and the one on the right is the EQ mode. And you do see that that EQ mode one centered it a little bit better than the alt azimuth mode. I have noticed that when I switch between the two and I don't shut off the Seestar and restart it, that it can sometimes skew the center of the images and put them higher or lower like it did in the left-hand picture. You see it's not quite in the center of the image. But yeah, this was a fun experiment. It was spontaneous. I really wasn't planning on doing an experiment like this, but it ended up being kind of an interesting one and a throwback to the past. You know, in the beginning, that didn't even bother me, those field rotations in the corners. And now that I've been doing EQ mode for a couple months without that field rotation, now it's a lot more obvious to me. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this spontaneous experiment and that everybody is having clear skies where you're at. Thanks for watching.